a month ago, we submitted our national budget analysis at Sililo Foundation, right? That is 2012, the 2024 national budget. We got it and scrutinized it, trying to find the gaps on where persons with disabilities are not within context. Yes, how are they being represented in the budget? So we came up with an analysis paper out of the same budget and we submitted to Parliament. So, of course, we have seen a slight improvement in increase in funding towards welfare of persons with disabilities in Zambia, right? But then comparing the amount given to ZAPID, which is the agency mandated to, take care of the welfare, and the money given to these other agencies, government, mind you, ZAPID is a government agency, and we have these other agencies like the Zambia Tourism Agency. So looking at the funding given to Zambia Tourism Agency and ZAPID, right? Two different... Yes, there's a very huge gap between... Okay. So that is one of the points that we raise in our analysis, that really there has to be an improvement. Yes, in as much as there is that improvement, but it's really, really too minimal, and we feel government can do better in uplifting the welfare of persons with disabilities in the country. Okay, I've also noticed maybe in the number of disabilities levels, are they rising or is still at the same level? Like the number of people that are, sometimes you get disabled later on in life, maybe because something happened, challenges happen. One of the things is RTAs, road traffic accidents causes a lot of these disabilities. That's right. So in your analysis, do you see a rise or it's stable? Lack of proper nutrition in our poor communities out there. So yeah, they're rising. Yeah. So I'm sure there's a lot of work really to be done. Yeah. Of course, for Sililo government.
I think I would say, as much as things are difficult here, they can improve. I mean, things for people with disabilities in the United States were very similar to how they are here not so long ago, in the 1970s, 1980s. And really what changed there was concerted efforts by people with disabilities themselves to advocate, to push for action. In some cases, literally in 1990, dragging themselves up the steps of our Congress building by their fingernails. And so when I see the strength of the disability community, when I see organizations like Sililo, I think that the way things are right now in Zambia is not the way they have to stay. I think if the community is dedicated and the government and civil society listen to what the disability community has to say, I think Zambia could become a world leader in accessibility if it simply followed through.
Also, maybe in this country, apparently, when you're disabled, you expect, especially the community, they're using it quite a lot. Putting these children in the streets on a wheelchair, driving towards the car and saying, hey, I'm in a wheelchair, I'm poor. Can you please help me? And they're being abused. I call that abuse because, I mean, that child is below 16 and is a young child. What would be your advice in such sense? Should people think like that is a normal thing to do?
Yeah, I mean, it's something we see it in the U.S. on a more industrial scale, as everything is in the U.S. Television campaigns, right? Look at this poor disabled child. Isn't their situation tragic? Give money to this big institution, and we will do something about it. And part of the pushback, actually, disabled advocates in the United States has been saying, look, don't just portray us in that light, right? Don't just portray us as poor and helpless, because that makes people think that we're incapable, and that as life with a disability is inherently tragic. Most disabled people I know, I have 25 coworkers, 75% of them are disabled, live very happy, well-rounded, productive lives, right? They have university degrees, they have marriages, they have children, they have rich social lives. I know that's not easy. It requires a lot of supports, but it can happen. And so, yeah, to those families, I'd say I understand why you're in that circumstance, and certainly the onus is on government and NGOs to provide services to people with disabilities. But don't use your child as a prop, right? Give them a chance for a real, well-rounded life that any other child would get to have. Okay, all right. Thank you very much for coming through, Colin. Edwin, is there enough schools for the disabled in Zambia? That is also one point we raised in our budget analysis, that government really should put in a lot of funding. So we have these schools, but they're not enough, and they are really widely spaced. Right, yes, they are really widely spaced, which is not supposed to be the case, because as we are mentioning right now, these are special needs schools. I only know like what, 2? Yes, about 2, 3. You can imagine that situation as
big as Lusaka is.
Yeah.
So we have really quite few schools, and in our analysis, we have recommended that government should put in more funding, maybe through the Ministry of Education, to make sure
and
that
of course
we have
teachers, training more teachers.
Yes, that also was one point. Yes, training more special education teachers in this regard. Yes,
well, there's a lot of work to happen.
A lot of work, really.
Yeah. So what's your final word?
My final word goes to government, really, that we can do enough. Remember, Zambia is a signatory to the United Nations Convention for Persons with Disabilities. We committed ourselves to making sure that the law is abided by our communities, yes, starting by government itself, right, yes, because the government as well is a culprit in this issue that we're talking about right now. The National Museum is owned by government. The University of Zambia, of course, it's semi-autonomy, but it's got funding from government. And these institutions, like we mentioned, they are really key institutions in this country, right, that we expect even international visitors, visiting these institutions, and they're inaccessible. So my word to government, to public out there, is that we can do better in improving the welfare of persons with disabilities out there, right? Because these are human beings like us.
Yeah.
There is no difference whatsoever. Right, as they say, disability is not inability, and so, yes, let's really promote inclusiveness out there. Let's employ more of persons with disabilities, because they are capable, they are able, just like we are able to, yes, just like the majority Zambians out there are able to execute tasks without challenges. So, yeah, that would be my final way, that we can do better as a country.
Thank you very much for coming through, Edwin and Colin. Have a great one.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Stay with us on Morning Bliss. We carry on with the program. We go for a musical break. When we get back with some motivation and, of course, matters arising and what's up for Sunday lunch. Stay tuned.